and we can start in a minute the show.
My name's Jimmy. This is Leo Zagami's broadcast here. We're having some technical difficulties. Please stand by. This is Aftermath.fm. My name's Jimmy. I'm helping out here with Leo Zagami. Having some problems here. Hang on a second. So we're having some technical difficulties with the show here. So just stand by, ladies and gentlemen. We'll try to get this squared away as soon as possible. Not sure exactly what is going on. What is going on with this broadcast? This is a Jimmy. It's the Aftermath.fm. And this is a Leo Zagami show. But for some reason, I'm getting jammed up here on this rebroadcast of Leo's first show. So let me see if I can do something about this. For some reason it's not letting me come back to Aftermath. Just stopped playing all of a sudden. So I'm not sure exactly what's going on here, but if something doesn't go on soon, I am going to rearrange something here and try to get us going. So mine's Jimmy. It's Sunday, or it's Saturday. I don't even know what day it is. I'm jumping in here to give Leo a hand, and we're having some technical difficulties with this web page, so I'm having a hard time opening it up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try to restructure this real quick. And so yeah, we had a good broadcast last night. Clyde Lewis did reverse speech. We came in. We had open lines all night. It was a good time. And then Rock and Rio also did some reverse speech because we do it every Friday night. And he focused on some things that were different than what Clyde had focused in on, and so we were able to hear a few things of what the MAGA prince had to say, and also I think he looked at Biden's London speech regarding the coronavirus. So I'm trying to get this page open here, so hopefully it is going to open for us, and if it doesn't, then we're just gonna move on. So Mr. Gates, if you're listening, do me a favor, see if you can download that episode and then pass it over to me in Skype. So in the meantime, I will keep rolling here with the punches. So while I get these technical difficulties squared away, let me tell you what's going on here. First of all, David Knight has joined the Aftermath team. He's coming on Monday through Friday, 7 a.m. Pacific. Immediately following him will be Kriston T. Harris. And then they will do a rebro of the David Knight show right immediately following Kriston. So stick around for that. Of course, we added Leo Zagami. And, of course, you have the Infinite Fringe. You have the Haterazzi. You have the big man on campus, Clyde Lewis. You have Conspirafact. There's so many great shows going on here and so little time. So, hey, I found this, hang on a second. I found this band that I think is really good, and I'm going to get a clip right now from them. And hang on. I'm going to get a clip. I'm going to play it, and then I'm going to see if I can get this squared away. I'm going to have to make a couple quick phone calls. So if you guys are ready, let's do this. Sticky Fingers. This song's called Cyclone. Check them out. Sticky Fingers.
Transform.
They're all over the internet, all over YouTube. Their stuff, their music, their live shows are incredible. Dude plays quite a bit of acoustic stuff. So here they go. This is Sticky Fingers. This is Cyclone. Aftermath.fm.
Here comes the story of a hurricane and a temper lost like crying tears in rain. no love is lost or no sweet wisdom gained. So save your tears, then save yourself the shame. Oh, cyclone. As we left the house and took a step outside, I could taste in the air a familiar sense of pride. And the wind did blow as you held your head up high. Then I saw the clouds draw storms into your eyes. Oh, cyclone. My man, but said I'm breaking bones. Out in the fire, won't leave it alone. It was bent and I was unable to pull them inside. So bend down them bridges, dig up them walls. What's that you got? Cause I'll have one of those. Darcy, I can never hate ya if I try. Cyclone.
So there it is, Sticky Fingers. My name's Jimmy. Hey, it's the Leo Zagami show, but I'm sitting in for Leo because we're having some technical difficulties with the internets. So I'm going to see if I can grab a few people to come on and join me, and we'll hang out with you guys. I'll open up the phones. I'll put the phone line up, and we'll see what's up. Let me see if there's... I can't even see if you guys are even over there in the chat room anymore because I can't get in there. So it really doesn't matter anymore at this point, does it? No, it doesn't. Because we got to adapt and overcome. That's my name, Jimmy, and that's what I do. Adapt and overcome. It's Aftermath.fm, your home of the counterculture. That's right. Come on in. Sit down. Make yourself at home.
Oh, beauty, from the balcony. Rivers flowing deep over all the I can see. Trains going by my window. After pain comes a chance for the heart to grow. And drink from the water now. Yeah. Yeah. Sister, just listen and drink from the water now. Yeah. Yeah. Underwater, darkness looms. I feel it on my skin, feel it try to pull me in now. Wash away these feelings. We wait for the day that love wins. Hey, brother, just listen and drink from the water now.
Yeah. Drink from the water. That's Mako Road. And I'm not going to turn it off just yet because the lead's about to happen. Hold on.
Brother, just listen and drink from the water now. Sister, just listen and drink from the water now.
Yeah. I'm trying as hard as I can, Mr. Gates, to get my life to sound like that.
Right on.
You know what I'm saying? I mean, man,
Yes,
doesn't that
sir.
just, couldn't you just see yourself just going down the, hey, I'm getting a message from the lion.
Oh, really?
He's calling me. Here we go.
Ready?
Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on a second. Leo Zagami.
Okay, are we on your side?
Yeah, it looks like we're good to go. I'm here with Mr. Gates, and we're having we got the, I guess the problems are solved, and you want to jump in here. You got about.
What I tell you is, the
you got-
other time Emmett told me the audio was not high enough.
So listen, you got about another hour and 15 minutes left of your show. So if you want to come on in here, jump on in here, and here I tell you what. Let me see if I can find.
Because I'm connected via Zoom with my the other guy who I do the show with. In fact, you should have.
Well, you're on the show right now, buddy. You're live
Eh?
right now. This show is live right now. The show started at 10 o'clock. Okay, so hang on a second now. So if you want to just bring your guest in, let's hear what he sounds like so that we can make sure.
No, I can't do that. We are already on. Yes. Hello, guys. Welcome. We are ready. Just a second. I'm trying to see if I can activate my other camera here.
Yeah, no problem. Tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to run your intro right now. Are you ready? Here we go.
And now, live from Palm Springs, California, your host, Leo Zagami.
Okay, so we are live on the air. Aftermath FM is logged in. We have also Global Enlightenment Network with Darrell there, and we have Dr. Paul Cottrell. Hi, Paul.
How you doing, Leo?
Very well, very well. We are trying to
you're
get
gonna
all
have
the
to-
technical sides
Hey,
sorted out. So,
Leo, have Paul get off the speaker because that doesn't sound good at all. We can't hear him very good over here on Aftermath.
yes, you have some kind of like a speaker sounding voice, Paul.
No, but maybe I can plug in something.
Yes, yeah. Try to get the mic better because the sound seems to be a little bit not so good on your side. How are you doing, Darrell?
I am celebrating a new day.
Ah, that's good, man.
A day without hearing from AOC is a good day.
That's good. That's good. That's good. So we are live, and of course, 15
Is this
minutes
better?
past. Yes, that sounds much better. Jimmy, is it sounding good on your side in the studio?
Yeah, it's starting to sound a little bit better there. Yeah, you guys just keep going. I'll try to mix it in and get you guys sounding as best I can. Go ahead.
Okay, perfect. So this is, of course, our weekly rundown of the events with Dr. Paul Cottrell, and of course, we are broadcasting this on a series of platforms, both while we are
Recording in progress.
And we are now, of course, also recording it for posterity and for broadcasting it on various platforms. Rumble, of course. YouTube doesn't seem to be very friendly with us, so I guess our videos are not really featured that much on YouTube, but they will be featured, of course, on my Facebook until they ban me. And it's being broadcast also on Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Dario, can you confirm me?
You are broadcasting from the beginning.
Okay, cool, no problem. So let's do a rundown of this week's events. Sorry if I was a little bit late, but here in California we actually have the threat of a blackout that was given by our illustrious Governor Newsom, who, of course, likes to always threaten us when we have our worst moments, especially when the heat here in Palm Springs has touched yesterday 123 degrees Fahrenheit. So that's pretty warm on our side, but we are trying to survive. I tell you guys, I'm not respecting Governor Newsom regulation, so I have put the air conditioning full blast. Because that's what it is. I mean, we are living in a free country in America, and we have a guy who is conducting the show like he's some kind of communist dictator. But that's what he is, unfortunately. I don't understand how the people can still vote him here in California. Apparently, in 3 days, the recall will be effective. At that point, hopefully, he will be out of office as soon as possible. That depending, of course, on how the election is going to go. We have, of course, also Joe Biden saying that it's unlikely that we will see new lockdowns. So it's likely that we won't see any new lockdowns. What do you think of that, Dr. Paul Cottrell?
Well, I've mentioned on my channel a while back, probably almost 2 months ago, that I called September as the end of the pandemic in the United States. That doesn't mean there won't be an endemic phase, but the pandemic, the crisis, will end in the United States in September. And it'll be, between now and September, will be relatively minor. But that means that we'll be moving into the endemic phase, which basically means we're going to have outbreaks. We're going to have microclusters, and there's going to be a push by the powers that be in government for annual or maybe every other year booster shots. And I think the cards that have been issued to ones that have received the vaccine, if they look carefully, you'll notice there's 4 rows. Well, you know, that means that they have already planned to give you more doses for SARS-CoV-2.
Well,
that's been in the works here. So, but in terms of lockdowns, the United States is moving in the right direction, and we are getting out of the crisis phase.
Okay, let me give, first of all, a disclaimer regarding the fact that everything that is said, of course, in this show is the responsibility of me and Dr. Paul Cottrell. As we are broadcasting on all these platforms, we like to say that, so there is no problems. We are, Paul, today also on another platform. So for the first time, we're broadcasting also on Aftermath FM, which is a platform that was founded by the great radio personality Clyde Lewis. And so we hope to reach even a wider audience. And of course, we do all this to bypass the censorship that was increasing in the last few months, and that has almost erased our presence on platforms like YouTube. Now, regarding instead the coronavirus crisis, of course, there is also a psychological crisis, because I went around here in Palm Springs to check out how people are reacting, because, as you know, for the last 4 days, every restriction has been lifted here in this state. And so my impression is that there is still people that are profoundly disturbed psychologically by what has happened, and that are not ready to give up on their mask wearing. There was actually somebody in front of me, the person working in the shop was saying, you can take it off, and this guy was simply stating, I don't feel comfortable, I feel like... So there is people who don't feel comfortable yet with going back to normality. There is still 34% of Americans that think restrictions in their area have been lifted too quickly. There is also, of course, 27% that saying that they were not lifted quickly enough. So, of course, America seems to be pretty much divided in how we should go back into this so-called new normality. What do you think, Paul?
Mm-hmm. Well, America's been divided for quite a while on many topics. And this topic is starting to become more of a political topic instead of a scientific topic now. What I'm noticing from individuals that live in New York City, because I'm away from New York City in an undisclosed location doing my research, but what I hear from friends is that people are not wearing their masks, outdoors. When they're in the restaurant, it's at full capacity and they're not wearing their masks. The only time that you really start seeing people wearing masks is when they're traveling on the MTA. So it's, you're packed, you're on the subway, then most people, not everyone, but most people are wearing the masks in those situations. So I think New York, because of its population density, is a good bellwether to understand, is it or is it not safe to do? This has been happening for more than 6 weeks now. There is no, outbreaks taking place in New York. So I think that it's time to open up America. We're back in business. We as Americans need to take risks and stop being afraid. The analog right after 9/11 was the boogeyman is around the corner, stay indoors, don't go out, don't go to the movie theater, don't go on vacation because terrorists are around the corner. So, now fast forward to COVID-19 crisis. And now we're going to have a certain percentage of the population that is going to be scared and, afraid of, they're going to be germophobic. That's going to be a new thing now. There's going to be many more people germophobic. Now, will it be transient? I don't know. It might last for about 2 years where you're going to have a hardcore group of people that are very germophobic, and they're going to be walking around in a year from now with a mask because they think that, the bug could be mutated and they may get it. So there's a psychological effect that's taking place here too. I personally think that people that are germophobic have a psychological disorder that needs to be addressed. But that's my opinion on that. But I think that America in general is at a state where it's safe to start taking, quote, risks. It doesn't mean that people won't get infected. Some people will. Some people may even die. But the thing is you can't shut down your economy forever. America is about exploring, taking risks. And unfortunately, what we're seeing in contemporary news now and on the mainstream is that don't take risks. The government's going to take care of you. Well, that's not the America that I was born into in early 70s. But that's the America that the ultra socialists want to have, is a coddling, nanny state. If you're afraid, government is going to take care of you. I believe in the idea of less government is better government. So people, the ones that are listening, go and live your life. Don't be afraid.
Thank you, Dr. Paul Cottrell. Now, officials yesterday unveiled here in California a new way that these people are in some way going to be controlling us. So this is the infamous vaccination record, digital vaccine passport, however you want to call it, digital COVID-19 vaccine record, whatever. They have basically said that everyone who has been inoculated with COVID-19 should have received a white paper card from Center for Disease Control and Prevention detailing where and when they got their shot. Now, state officials said an electronic option will give residents an alternative to this. But it seems like in some way they are encouraging the use of this vaccine pass, let's call it like that, because when I went around, most shops were not asking about it. Of course, there were supermarkets who seemed to be more inclined to wear masks, and where all the clients were wearing masks, other places where people were not wearing them. But now there is this new thing. Will this lead to some kind of loss of our privacy? Residents basically are demanded to create a personal identification number that can be used to access a digital copy of their inoculation record, as well as a scannable QR code. So this is what we have seen also in New York State, Paul. And I think that in New York State, they seem to be maybe more strict about this regulation. Here, my impression is that most shops, most restaurants, most businesses want to simply go back to normality, and they don't ask people any proof. I went to at least a couple of shops and they didn't ask me any proof if I was vaccinated or not. And of course, I was not wearing the mask. But there is then maybe now this encouragement from the California state for a proof of vaccination to carry around. How is this going to end up, Paul?
Well, I think they're testing the water. The governments at the state level and the federal level in the United States, and even governments outside of the United States, they want what we would call the vaccine passport, right? Now, they're testing the water to see if there's going to be individuals that will adopt to that criteria. I don't think many, even people that wanted to take the vaccine, I don't think that they're for vaccine passports, the far majority of the people out there. Now, internal movement in the country, I don't think it's constitutional to have a vaccine passport because there's interstate commerce regulations. You can't prevent interstate commerce. So I view this as an interstate commerce issue. The sad thing is that lawyers aren't getting involved in stopping this stuff, and protecting our civil liberties. So now,
because
technically,
Paul, yeah. Here in California, the reopening guidelines say that such vaccine passport is required only for indoor events with more than 5,000 people. That is where they actually oblige you to follow this rule. But otherwise, there is not a imposition to submit such documentation.
Well, I was going to move towards something a little different. I think there's not going to be a push for a vaccine passport for, let's say, restaurants, or let's say small venues, of 100 people or something like that. Where I'm worried is that the larger companies out there, GM, Ford, JP Morgan, these larger corporations that Americans work for, them imposing on their employees to come back to work, you have to be vaccinated. That's where I think this is going. And so I'm more worried about corporate America, not the little mom and pop shops that are around town.
Okay, so you are worried that basically
okay.
So I understand. The corporate American, basically those businesses that feel they can require this proof of vaccination to all the people who work for them. So it's actually a bigger problem for people who who might work for a specific company that is inclined in demanding this kind of vaccine passport. More than the private citizen that just goes into the shop, because like I noticed myself, most shops, they simply want to go back into business. They don't care about any proof of vaccination because they are already fed up. I mean, most of the world is fed up of these impositions, but especially here in California, where Governor Newsom has even got 2 million people signing for his recall, which, like I said earlier, is into effect from the 22nd, so in 3 days. So that's what is happening here. There is, of course, also Republican politicians who are demanding at this point also the airplane companies to jump on board and drop their mask requirements, because they say if each state is dropping these mask requirements, why don't they drop it on the airlines? But that seems to be a little bit more of a tricky subject.
Well, because you're in a condensed area and some people may be asymptomatic, just from a legal standpoint and from a insurance standpoint, I'm sure their corporate lawyers are saying make sure that all the passengers have masks. We may see masks on airplanes, especially international travel, probably for the next year. I'd be shocked if they stopped a mask, quote, mandate on airplanes in 6 months. Especially, see, here's the problem. So the United States is getting out of their crisis, and we're going to go into an endemic phase, right? But there is the third world that is just going in. So some countries are just getting out of their second wave. Now, the epi curves, the epidemiological curves, are showing that it takes about 4 waves for this thing to start petering out. So, and there's a lot of dynamics on why that is. But the point here is that a big part of the world is still going to be in the crisis phase into Q1 or Q2 of next year. So we have to, these airlines, especially the ones that are international, they're thinking globally, not just domestically. Now, there may be some sort of lenience on the masks in domestic flights. That makes sense. But I'd be shocked if the corporate lawyers say take down that mask mandate on airplanes for international travel until the crisis worldwide is over.
Now, regarding this pandemic, this week's news, the most, let's say, interesting news covering this whole pandemic has been the revelations made by this Chinese defector, Dong Jingwei, who basically was one of the heads of one of the most powerful intelligence agency of counterintelligence, basically in China. Dong Jingwei defected in mid-February, came here to, I think, visit his daughter, Dong Yang, who was studying here, and then apparently the DIA has put him under protection after a couple of weeks, this top counterintelligence official. Why is it so important? Because he provided the DIA with the following information. Early pathogenic studies of the virus we know as SARS-CoV-2. Models of predicted COVID-19 spread and damage to the US and the world, meaning that the Chinese knew and deliberately spread it, knowing the effects it will have. Then he also gave financial records detailing which exact organization and governments funded the research on SARS-CoV-2 and other biological warfare research. Name of US citizens who provide intel to China, names of Chinese spies working in the US or attending US universities, which is another very important topic concerning also research. Financial records showing US businessmen and public officials who have received money from the Chinese government, Details of meeting U.S. government's officials had perhaps unwittingly with Chinese spies and members of Russia's SBR, and how the Chinese government gained access to a CIA communication system, which led to the death and arrest of dozens of Chinese people who were working with the CIA. This was an event that happened that was pretty dramatic. And then, let's say, the last but not the least, information regarding the hard drive of Hunter Biden infamous laptop, showing the information the Chinese government has about Hunter's pornography problem, about his and his father's dealing with Chinese entities. So this Chinese defector is apparently, from what they have been saying, the reason why Fauci and now the whole of the Biden administration has suddenly turned around and started to talk about the actual origin of the virus, which is no longer natural, but it comes from the Wuhan lab. And I mean, this is quite impressive, the work that, of course, was done by the DIA, mostly also because they had to shield this defector for a period, even from the CIA and from everybody else, by not revealing his identity. The Biden administration initially said that they didn't know about him when they were first asked about this defector. And now, of course, China has been asking, because China has been asking right from the start to give back this defector to China, which, of course, if he goes back to China, he will be killed. So what's your idea on the fact that this Dong Jingwei has in some way pushed the Biden administration to find, and Fauci, the infamous Dr. Fauci, which is definitely somebody that is included in the information that Dong has provided to the DIA, because when it comes to the financial records detailing which exact organization governments funded the research on SARS-CoV-2 and other biological warfare research, the name of Fauci will definitely figure in those documents. Your impression about this sudden, now we have his name, but the sudden revelation about why finally the leftists, the libtards of this country have to finally admit the real origins of this virus?
Right. Well, for the ones that are new to listening to my perspective on this, there is an analog that happened about 8 months ago with a doctor named Dr. Yang, who first came onto the scene on The War Room with Steve Bannon. She explained the origins coming out of the Wuhan University and P4, what we call P4, okay, the virology department there. That is one side of the story. If you look at what has been playing out for the last 8 months, and now, just recently, it has been shine a light on the CCP and their involvement. Did the virus start in Wuhan? Yes. The doctor's name who started it is Dr. Shi, with some help with Dr. Zhao, all right, in 2008. But there is a U.S. involvement in 2009 to late 2014.
But that is what I said.
So no. This is an important piece here.
Yeah.
Is that this Dr. Yang was the first trial balloon to just promote the narrative out there that it's a CCP virus. It is a USA CCP virus. 100%.
Yeah, but that
I am 100%.
Yeah, but that
but the thing is that this guy that came out just now
Paul,
is the other piece to shine the light onto the CCP and to try to keep it's eye candy to not shine a light on the bioweapons program that is still in effect with 11 labs that Congress that's still giving provisions for.
Listen, this is the Vice Minister of State Security in China, Dong Jingwei, this guy. Okay, so he is saying within the revelations, he's actually stating what you're saying in a way, because he's basically saying that there is financial records detailing the exact organization governments which funded the research. And
it goes way farther than that, Leo, because he's talking about the funding mechanism. We revealed the funding
but it's not a question.
Yeah, but through EcoHealth Alliance.
Okay, but he's also showing.
No, Leo. The issue here is not the conduit, the funding conduit that Fauci used. That has already been established with the leaked emails. All right. It's not just that. It's the nanoferritin that the military was using for the vaccine for their soldiers, for our soldiers, the United States soldiers. They were developing a bioweapon by using the common cold that we call beta coronaviruses as a bioweapon. And the reason why is because Dr. Shi put in HIV homology in this. The gain of function that everyone's been talking about in the mainstream media and in my channel, it revealed on January 29th of 2020, so over a year and a half ago, gain of function equals HIV. I want people that are listening, I want people to start thinking this. Everyone that keeps on saying gain of function, that's a fancy term for they put HIV homology in SARS. That's what they did. And who did it? It first started at Wuhan and further developed by Barrick and Dr. Shi in the United States under a military program.
Okay.
And we need to shine a light on both sides. Okay. Not just the funding of Fauci.
But it's the question here.
Fauci, I want hung.
I'm not saying here the funding. But here, Paul, the thing is, yes, but you are still not understanding that one of the main revelations here is the deliberate spread and damage to the US and the world, which was predicted by a model which was, of course, approved by the Chinese Communist Party to then affect the rest of the world. Then, regardless of the people who, of course, if you want to go back to the origins of all this, we just have to read the Rockefeller Foundation papers from 10 years ago, which I published in my books, which said that the virus will be spread from 2020, that people will be locked up in their houses. It even said that China will be the country that will behave better. In the Rockefeller Foundation papers, it says that China will be the country that will control better the pandemic. This is a paper that was published years ago. So we knew if we want to really go back to the origins, we can say the Rockefeller Foundation went to the Vatican in November 2019. They had a chat with the Pope. The whole plan was approved. The spread of the virus was already in place. And at that point, the rest of the world was victim of something that, of course, is developing from China, but is connected with...
I 100% agree with you, Leo. But the thing is that we have to shine a light on the weapons program that was in the United States, what was going on in China. That's why I call it the USACCP virus. And all the perpetrators, the cabal that you're talking about, needs to be hunted down and prosecuted. And
they will never. I mean, you're talking about the Rockefeller Foundation. Let's be honest, Paul. We have to understand that these people are not.
I can be hopeful.
Paul.
I mean, there was the end of the World War II and the trial of the Nazis. I don't understand why we can't try this cabal.
Because the land on which the United Nations is built was donated by Rockefeller. It's like saying you have to put upside down the whole system, including the United Nations, which, by the way, UNESCO, World Health Organization, all these organizations are part of one structure. Of course, they have all proven to be tools of the mondialist. If you want to bring out, of course, this truth, you have to also acknowledge that it's impossible to fight them in a legal way. There is no legal way of finding a system which is built by them. I always tend to say to people that, for example, they say, I have ready here in Italy, I want to denounce the World Health Organization, these other organizations, because they have done this and that. You can't denounce anybody. You can't denounce anybody. And now you can't even denounce these people who are injecting into your body the vaccines, because of course they will never be made liable of anything. They have already made deals with the governments, so they are untouchable. So these are untouchable people, let's say. You can't.
Well, I don't. I maybe it's the hopeful soul in me. I don't know, but I believe that if there's a will, there's a way. All right, and if we have the will to hunt them down and prosecute them, and under a court of law, if found guilty,
but that's it. When you say court of law,
crimes against humanity,
okay,
I believe in justice.
Paul, can I say
I believe in justice.
It's great,
and we have to hunt them down.
It's fantastic, Paul, but it doesn't exist because when Georgetown University is a Jesuit university, when the faculty of law is basically monitored by these people, when the people who become lawyers become part of a structure in a system which is rigged. So when you saw what happened the other day at the Supreme Court, the system is rigged. They are all part of a system. So basically,
what do we do?
Because because I mean, I've been fighting the New World Order for ages, and I always said, when you find yourself in a court of law, and of course the judge is a Mason, the lawyer is a Mason, the other guy who is about to be judged is a Mason, well, you can't expect this whole court of law to be nothing else than a kangaroo court, and the whole thing to be a joke. So
then maybe we start hunting kangaroos. I don't know. The thing is that we need to shine a light and tell the world what really happened so it doesn't happen again. These people bleed, all right? They are fearful. They
okay.
If
you know what?
shine the
I think
light,
that
if you shine the light them enough,
yes,
they will run. They'll corner themselves eventually. But we have to put the pressure on them.
I think that what happened with this Chinese defector, who actually has given some evidence, which is very important evidence here, because when you talk about the financial records showing U.S. businessmen and public officials who have received money from the Chinese government, the problem here is that we have in Washington, D.C. at the moment, Nancy Pelosi and the whole bunch of Californians who are heavily involved with China. And they have a lot of business deals with China. They're all corrupt. So, I mean, how we can, the big problem here now, this is a cultural revolution, unfortunately. That's how the communists work. They are doing a Maoist cultural takeover. They're destroying every single American dogma, every single American belief, so they can eventually replace it with something new. That something new is basically communism, socialism, call it however you want, but it is when we see cancel culture, why is it so important for them to have this cancel culture? Why is it so important for them to today celebrate a new federal holiday? And of course, with all the respect that I can have, I'm no racist here. But
I'll tell you the word. Cornel West is pushing deconstructionism of the United States, and I know that for a fact because I saw him lecturing at Harvard about it. So the bottom line is this: all right, are we going to try to make sure that we protect our constitutional rights and the flag, or are we just going to let these socialists run us over? That's the bottom line here.
Listen,
are we going to protect that, the stars and stripes, or not? And I take the stance that we have to protect that Constitution and that flag. And we have to start engaging.
But I think yes,
we
Paul,
have to start pushing back.
what you're saying is great. What you're saying is great. Unfortunately, I think that once these people arrive in Washington, they get so corrupted that all their nice ideas go out the window. The fact that the other day in Hong Kong, we saw the raid of the Chinese police at the Apple Daily, which is one of the few pro-democracy papers left in Hong Kong. And they could arrest these people, and America could do nothing. And Great Britain, who actually signed the deal and gave back Hong Kong, said nothing. And it's all cosmetics when it comes down to the G7 meeting of Joe Biden the other day, saying we have to impose, China has to have ethic and morals and blah, blah, blah. It's all, I find it very, very much cosmetics. In fact, now, after the meeting between Joe Biden and Vladimir Putin, which resulted in a nothing burger, we will have another nothing burger with the meeting with Xi Jinping. So now they're planning a big meeting in which Joe Biden is going to be there with his sunglasses. He's going there to fight for America and the rights of all the free citizens. What they're going to get out of it? Nothing. I think it's cosmetics.
The reason why is that, right, I agree. But Biden is bought and paid for by the CCP.
Yeah, of course.
Anyone that thinks otherwise is not paying attention to what was going on before the election and all the Hunter Biden stuff.
Absolutely.
Right? So he may have an administration that says that he's for America, but he's really for a 21st century China. And this dovetails into what you were saying about the reason for the release of the virus on the Chinese side. Trump was very strong with the trade sanctions on China, and it hurt them greatly financially, right? And they were hemorrhaging corporations and FDI, foreign direct investment. So the only way to get out of the hole was to bring the whole world down with them and to give a better chance for the 21st century China. The 21st century China has been planned pre-COVID, all right? COVID happens, or let me go back one. Trump happens. It puts a big speed bump and questions a 21st century agenda, the 21st century China agenda. And then COVID happens. So the release happens. The cabal wants the release to happen. So this is why it's not just China and their release, but there's a cabal that's US and CCP and something else. You know more about this cabal and how to articulate than I do. But the bottom line is this: it's not just the Chinese, and it wasn't just P4 that released. So with that in mind, it brought the whole world down economically. So when everything rebooted and the quote Great Reset happens, that it allowed for the 21st century China. And when they succeed, then their socialistic model will be put on a pedestal for other people to try to copy in developed nations, not developing nations. The analog to this was during the Cold War. There were a lot of people in the United States wanting to move towards a communistic model because they thought, because of the propaganda, that the Russians, the Soviet Union, were actually more productive and better. It was a better system than what we had in the United States. All you have to do is just, go, back in time and look at what was going on in the 1950s and 1960s in the United States. So, now they are, trying to put China on that pedestal and have that 21st century China now. Biden is a key piece to this because I don't think he really honestly cared about America. And now he's in a position to go, you know what? All right, China, I'll play tough guy on the surface, but I'm really a softie. And, when you want to take over Taiwan and Hong Kong, I'm not going to do much about it. Now, the proof will be in the pudding when they make their move on the first island chains, probably sometime in Biden's administration.
Well, but regarding the space race, we know that the Chinese are going to be pretty much everywhere in this galaxy. Even they're going to be around and about. They're already conquering space this week, and they seem to be very much interested in conquering the moon for its resources, of course. So we will definitely have to fight also China, not only on this planet, but also in other planets. And I'm sure that what Trump did with the creation of the Space Force was very lungimirant and very good for America. Going back to this holiday, Juneteenth, what's your idea of it?
I think it's deconstructing the flag, deconstructing the Constitution. It's trying to be apologetic. It's trying to bring about this idea of the white is bad. Everything about the white is bad. Anything that doesn't give you equal outcome must be racist.
Well, in fact, I'm
about giving people opportunity to succeed, but that doesn't mean that everyone will succeed. There's about skills. It's about hard work. It's about luck. So this idea that equal outcome, if you don't get it, it must be due to some sort of systemic racism is BS. So this is another way of just kind of forcing the population to be apologetic. All right. Now, I've said it on our shows. My great-great-grandfather fought in the Civil War on the Union side. He was wounded in 1862 in the hand, and then was transferred over to Grant's army, and then fought in Richmond and at Appomattox. All right, and saw the actual surrender of Grant and Lee. Now, he was on the Union side. That was the one that won. For the ones that are maybe our international audience. So when I hear that, oh, well, you're white and you must be a racist. Well, I'm like going, I have a long distant relative, great-great-great-grandfather, that fought alongside General Grant that actually ended the Civil War and allowed for more prosperity for the black community. Now, yes, there were transition periods, but if you really look at the history, the Democratic Party is the party of the Ku Klux Klan. The Democratic Party was the party of segregation, but yet they spun it as though they're the emancipators and that they're the ones that understand about equality and all that, which is 100% not true when you look at the historical record. So this is just another way to deconstruct the flag. Now let's go back to what you were saying about China, and we were saying about, and this completely dovetails into the deconstructionism. The China flag, there's not many stars around the Chinese flag. There's 50 stars, and in the backdrop is blue, and that's very reminiscent of the constellation. Our ethos, our DNA, our soul of the country is to explore, and it's not to be second place. The Chinese, their flag doesn't have that same mosaic. It doesn't have that same feeling of exploration into the stars. So I do not accept us playing second fiddle to the Chinese, especially in space exploration. It's not even on their flag, but yet it is on ours. It's hinted there on the flag because of the blue and the 50 stars. You see the constellation.
Well, actually, talking about the flag, there is a Black Lives Matter nut called Macy Gray, which is a singer, actually talked about the fact that we should abolish the flag because it's stuttered, dated, and divisive. That's what she said, and argued for it to be replaced in honor of Juneteenth. I mean, these people are insane.
This is exactly what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is coming from Cornel West and that movement to do deconstructionism of America. They want to tear it down. They don't want to. They want to erase the history of America and build it up with some sort of fake socialism. That is not what my Uncle Milt fought for in the European theater during World War II, shooting Nazis, all right? That's not what my grandfather did as a CB in the Pacific, island hopping, pushing back the Japanese. That's, in my book, that's unacceptable. That is unacceptable.
Why do these people have so much hate for the American style? They have so much this anti-American feel, all these Black Lives Matter people. I mean, you can't really talk about American flag like you're talking even of the Confederate flag, because, of course, the Confederate flag might have some problems for some people. I mean, of course, it's reminiscent of a way of life that it was wrong, which saw
but there's no. I mean, there's huge differences between stars and stripes and the stars and bars, right? Or what people would say is the Confederate flag. I mean, it's two totally different things. Sure. I mean, to say to tear down and burn the American flag is unacceptceptable.
Yeah, it's unacceptable also.
They want to take down the statue
of Abraham Lincoln. Abraham Lincoln statue. Abraham Lincoln.
Well, and Washington, right on Wall Street, they want to take down. I mean, here's the problem. They want to erase history because a big part of the beginnings of our history in this country has been, during the Revolution. That was the foundings of it. The founding fathers happened to be white, all right? The social constructs at that time were different than they are now. Blacks have more opportunity now than ever in American history. Yet, if you listen to the mainstream media, you would think that they have the least amount of opportunity. So I'm against having some special day. It's just this agenda of deconstructing America and lifting up socialism.
Because this today, this celebration, this Emancipation Day, this Juneteenth, also known as the Black Independence Day, was born in Texas when a bunch of Union soldiers, black Afro-American Union soldiers, went there and, of course, to fight the last remains of slavery, which was, of course, there was Abraham Lincoln's Emancipation Proclamation of 1862 that outlawed slavery in Texas, but, of course, Texas, as the most remote of the slave states, still was maybe indulging in some ways, in some parts, but when all this was over, then we had the great United States of America after this experience, no? And so to go back and rehash what happened back there, even if it's, of course, part of African-American history, I don't see the necessity of adding a new federal holiday after the Martin Luther King's Jr. Day, which was declared back in 1983. If not for Joe Biden to just then say, I've been part of history in ratifying this new holiday, that though is built to start to undermine also the holiday which we have in a couple of weeks, which is, of course,
you got it.
The 4th.
You got it. That's exactly what I've been saying. They're deconstructing America. They're trying to to go, well, there is this independence for blacks, and now there's the independence for the country. They don't see. It's not. They don't want cohesion. They don't want nationhood at all. They want to deconstruct America. The reason why they don't want a wall is because when you have a porous border, you don't have a country. All right. The reason why they want to weaken the currency and to change the currency of the United States and maybe have it more a economic union bloc, within North America, South America, Central America, like an Amero kind of thing. You lose your country. Two things that make a country: borders and you controlling your currency. You lose one of those or both, you've lost your country. All right? That's one pillar of deconstructing America. The other is now the history and the social cohesion of the people through its history. I'll tell you, what it is you got a lot of famous professors at famous universities that hate America. And because of their position, they were able to teach their rhetoric to a bunch of, undergrads that bought into the BS. And now you have thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, if not millions of crazy socialists out there that really believe that America's bad. But if America's so bad, then why is every Tom, Dick, and Harry wanting to come to America for opportunity? Why don't they go to Venezuela? Why don't they go to North Korea? I am sure that they won't have as good of a life in North Korea as they do, let's say, in Texas. Right? So,
though I must say that
they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg.
Lately, a North Korean defector said that they noticed in American society the similarities with the way now the media is acting up, trying to always protect Joe Biden, crafting a well-crafted propaganda around him. There is some similarities also with the Maoist revolution, in the sense that they are destroying, like we said up until now, our roots, our origins, our history. The cancel culture is part of it. So we are in a process which is dangerously shifting the United States from being that land of opportunity, that American dream, and more an American nightmare if we let them continue in their quest to destroy American values.
I totally agree.
So,
the thing is that they, a catchphrase is they're going to kill the goose that laid the golden egg. And that golden egg is the opportunity that our type of governance and economic structure allows people that have talent and luck and will to try to succeed. It doesn't mean the outcome is guaranteed. And this is the problem with these socialists. They want a guaranteed outcome. And they get all bent out of shape that they didn't get equal outcome. I'm all for people that are in, socially deprived areas in the United States to get more funding for education, to get them, up to a certain level so they can be prosperous and plug into society and be productive citizens. I'm all for that, but that doesn't mean that it should be guaranteed outcome. And this is, I think that is the real philosophical debate here. So I'm against deconstructionism. This is a slippery slope. What's going to happen? Mark my words on this. All right, first it's the holiday, and then you start hearing all these apologies from different people that are in politics, especially whites, and they're being apologetic. Then what will happen in Congress is they're going to start to draft bills that are going to be reparation bills. And they're going to say, okay, if you're black, all right, the government is gonna write you a check for $25,000. Now, I don't know what number they come up with in Congress, but I'm just making a point here. For every person in your household, and if you're a black family, you're gonna get $25,000 for reparations. All right, that's where this is going. If we keep on going down this road of a quote apology of something that was really institutionalized from England, it's an English institution, not an American institution, institutionalized. That was a relic that came from England. And now you and I are going to have to pay the reparations, even though I had a great-great-great-grandfather that fought alongside General Grant. You'd be kidding me. I got to pay the higher taxes because they issued bonds to the open market to pay for reparations that Lincoln said not to do. He said that we should not ask for reparations with the southern states when they lost the war because he thought that it would divide the country. Now, what's happening? You have these socialists, they're taking a page, going all the way back to 1864, right before Lincoln gets assassinated, and he's saying, I don't want reparations from the South. They need to heal. We need to be one country. Now what do we have is these socialists want to divide us. So Biden goes, well, I'm making history, and I'm on the side of history, and making everything copacetic. But he's the party of the KKK.
I think that all this is also happening because foreign actors are increasingly present in this country. That's why when I talked earlier about that Chinese defector saying that he had evidence of paid public officials, I think that's very important. I think that it's very important to see who are the traitors of this country, and I'm sure that there are many who are selling out this country, because the problem with the politics is that it's very easy to corrupt this kind of people. Unfortunately, most of them have been corrupted, and Donald J. Trump was maybe a maverick because he himself has a billionaire background, didn't particularly need the money. But then you have people like Obama, who has signed a mega contract for a book deal and probably would have sold his mother if he could. So, I mean, the guy who arrives in Washington, who fights for the people and all that, even these people in Black Lives Matter, we have seen the leader of Black Lives Matter buying property, villas, and spending money like, and of course at the end forced to resign. But it's like people are too easily corrupted. And when you have aggressively present foreign actors like China and Russia, who have interest in seeing America not being strong, in losing their position of strength, then it's obvious that these kind of things can occur. So I think that when now I was just seeing that, for example, there has been some fights that occurred at a conservative conference that was held in Denver. Hundreds of Antifa militants threatened and harassed drivers and guests outside of the hotel where this event was taking place. Now, who pays Antifa? Who pays Black Lives Matter? Who pays these crooks, these criminals, who are definitely not an idea? Because, they were saying Antifa is an idea. Well, Antifa is not an idea because they went to the Yacht Hotel in Denver, apparently, and started to harass and threaten the people who were participating to a conservative conference that was going on inside, a conservative conference called Western Conservative Summit 2021, which had a number of quite known speakers, nothing incredible, but quite known within the conservative, let's say, milieu. And there was There was, of course, also Andy Gio. Andy Gio, who is basically one of the few journalists who has always exposed Antifa. And basically, I think that was maybe one of the main reasons why Antifa went there on the attack. But, I mean, a country where freedom of speech is no longer possible because a bunch of crooks are coming to silence you. I mean, they have been talking about the 6th of January like it's some kind of 9/11, but they are not talking about what went on in front of the White House when there were even Chinese citizens sent from China who were there aggressively attacking, and they were moving to attack the White House. I mean, the Black Lives Matter or the Antifa and all these movements have sponsors, and it's not only George Soros. Of course, George Soros is very prominent. Everybody talks about him and likes to depict him as the ideal scapegoat. And we know that he has definitely, his ideas are not our ideas. His open society and the way he's visioning the world. What do you think? But then you have China. China goes hand in hand with George Soros.
I wanted to drill down on the funding mechanism.
Yeah.
See, there's two funding mechanisms with Black Lives Matter that I think are important to reveal. One is pretty much well known in the internet world, and that is individuals like George Soros do fund Black Lives Matter or Black Lives Matter type organizations in Antifa, all right? That's operating cash, all right? The bigger issue here is not so much George Soros's money, but Black Lives Matter now holds individuals, quote, hostage through their burning down the towns. And organizations, businesses, large institutions like JP Morgan or universities, what they do is they donate to Black Lives Matter. Because what happens is they go, this is such an atrocity. The blacks are upset and they're burning down the town. We need to donate and start creating committees within our organization so we can start talking about the systemic racism. Well, what happens is that it's a positive feedback loop. Black Lives Matter burns down the town only to get funds from corporate America. And if they need a little bit more money, they get upset. This is very similar and very reminiscent of what goes on in Palestine. If you don't get some funds, you create some havoc, and then you get some funds. So I see no difference in the never-ending conflict in the Middle East and the never-ending conflict that we're starting to see with, quote, racism in America. Black Lives Matter is no different than the PLO in terms of how they are funding themselves. They hold people hostage, and not literally, I'm talking figuratively, but they're holding the society hostage, and so universities will get the student body to donate, and they will donate to Black Lives Matter or large institutions like banks. So, because if they don't do it, they look like they're racist. So they can go and say, well, we're donating a few $1 million, of our revenue or whatever to black causes. It makes them look good. It's a marketing strategy. Black Lives Matter loves it because now they got a new funding mechanism or a new source of funds. So it's not just George Soros. Actually, he's somewhat of a small player. The bigger player is the people that are feeling psychologically held hostage, and that they have to do these committees, and they feel as though they have to donate to some sort of social cause that they constructed. So I think that we need to shut down that funding mechanism. Then you won't see Black Lives Matter anymore. If you keep the funding mechanism happening, it's the PLO all over again. And this thing is never going to end. It's always going to flare up. every so many years or every so many months, and they'll just say, well, some cop shot this guy or gal, they happen to be black, and therefore they burned down the town, and then JP Morgan writes a $10 million check. And it'll never end. It'll always be like that until we basically say, no, you can't do that. Shut down that organization. But, that takes some political will, because if you try to shut down the organization, they're going to say you're racist. I think the main point for the audience to take from what I'm saying is just that we really need to look at what Martin Luther King said, and that is, it's not the color of your skin, but your character.
Yeah, because all this critical race theory is a pile of nonsense.
Right.
I mean, it's
right. It's divisive.
It's
They
divisive,
want
but
us
it's
divided.
increasingly pushed within the schools, within the universities. In Rhode Island, the teacher was busted offering students bonus points to defend the critical race theory at the school board meetings. So imagine that. Going back also to the way they are canceling things and bringing up new things, Illinois town halls, Juneteenth and Pride parades have been present, but they're canceling 4th of July parades and fireworks. So, I mean, it's like they're literally canceling in Illinois. And to tell you the truth, I don't see Illinois or Chicago in particular as being great places where people live a great life. They pretty much live a shitty life, just as much as in some big cities here in California, where there is the increasing problem of homeless people. Now, the latest news, though, which might make some people happy at least, is that Governor Newsom was attacked by a homeless person, and he was actually attacked. His security detail had to intervene. He was attacked by a 54-year-old while walking on Washington Street in Old Oakland. And then when the journalist went to Newsom, he brushed it off saying, oh, well, different people have different ways of communicating. Yeah, we are really viewing some crazy people here. I mean, completely insane. The mayor of Chicago is another insane individual, but still, there is people who vote, and there is people who support this insanity. When I was here at the beginning of the show telling you that here we have the threat of everything shutting down from one moment to another with a blackout, when we have 123 degrees Fahrenheit outside, that means basically almost dying of heat if the air conditioning goes. Why are people voting for these idiots?
Well, I don't have an answer for that. I mean, well, I do have a partial answer. Maybe they're not voting and the machine is flipping. And we've been down this road before, at a general election. I question really the legitimacy of the voting system right now in the United States, especially when you're dealing with Diebold, and Dominion and all these different machines. But even if it is legitimate, there is this, people are being programmed to start thinking in a socialistic way. I'm kind of a diehard, person that's, give me liberty or give me death, right? I don't believe in the idea of socialism. I don't believe in the idea of communism. I believe in free markets, and I believe in the idea of merit. It's a meritocracy. It's about you having skills that you build up, and you try, and you take risks. And that's the American journey. And the outcome is unknown. But people are being told in school, well, trying is good enough. See, it starts at K through 12. Trying is good enough. Everybody's going to get a golden star, even if Johnny failed his calculus exam. So there is no incentive to push. There's no incentive to improve. There's no incentive to see where you're at academically and improve upon that. And it gets to the point when you get into it as an adult, and you assume that the government is just going to give you something. Now, what they're being programmed for, I think, is the eventuality of artificial intelligence being implemented widespread in the society. And there's a decoupling of capital and labor.
Artificial intelligence and robotics, like the title of my book here, because robotics goes hand in hand with the development of artificial intelligence in taking the work from the hardworking people, and then with the robotics they substitute all that, then coadjuvated of course by artificial intelligence. That means they're going towards the universal basic income, which we discussed many times on this show. Going instead to another topic of interest for us, especially because we've been censored so heavily on YouTube. A new research has proven that basically Joe Biden videos have been manipulated, in the sense that their dislikes on the videos have been changed by 600%. So the YouTube censors the people like us, removes of course the subscriptions, often changes the likes if they are too much, but this time they have been actually caught doing it. There is actual evidence, screenshots of these videos from the White House, which received an enormous amount of dislikes, and after a few minutes they had a quarter of those dislikes. So there is a manipulation here that is being constantly done by the big tech, aligned with Washington, meaning now the Democrats, and aligned also with China. We have seen in those emails with Dr. Fauci the importance of the relationship between Dr. Fauci and Facebook, the way they molded and crafted the information regarding this virus. Very criminal behavior, really. Nobody does anything to stop all this.
Well, I think it's an issue of freedom of press. It's a constitutional freedom. We experienced it for ourselves directly when we were covering COVID-19 and the election fraud. We were shut down in live broadcasts on YouTube multiple times. I don't know if we're shut down now, on YouTube, but more than 10 times we've been shut down, and our videos have been taken down on YouTube for multiple, things that we talk about. And on our platform, when you and I talk, we talk about a lot of topics, so it's very hard to narrow exactly what they're shutting us down for. But the censorship is real. The censorship needs to stop. What do we do as citizens? There's this famous phrase that I remember Alex Jones saying, and that was, once they take him down on YouTube, everyone's going to be Alex Jones. And we are being Alex Jones in a way. Now the question is, what do we do about it? I feel that we have to engage and start suing these companies. That, yes, I understand they're on a private platform, but I think that there is a legitimate argument now in the world that we live in, that Facebook, Twitter, the internet is a public square, and that because it's a public square, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, freedom of speech needs to be adhered to, independent on if it is a private company or not. So, and if it's not upheld, then you trust bust. You turn it into a utility. So this is where I think Trump failed when he was the president of the United States. He should have been pushing that Twitter and Facebook and these social media platforms would be turned into utilities that can be regulated and or, have some sort of law instituted in Congress that actually prevented them from curtailing our First Amendment rights.
Yeah, absolutely, because now we are left with the complete censorship on this social media, and that's why, though, we have also opened up the possibility for other platforms to broadcast what we're saying. That's why we are broadcasting live at the moment on Aftermath FM. We are broadcasting live on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. And we invite anybody who wants to, of course, relay this interview on their own platforms, on their own channels of choice. They can do that because the important thing is to spread as wide as possible what we discuss every week with Leo Zagami and Dr. Paul Cotrella.
Well, for the audience that's listening, I'm sure the ones that are Gen Xers would appreciate what I'm saying here in the States. There was a movie that came out in the 80s, all right, it was called Red Dawn. Yes. And there was a remake of it too, in 2006 or 2016, something like that. But the original one with Patrick Swayze, we had the Russians that invaded the United States, and it was a group of high school students that were fighting the Russians in the in the mountains, right? And their battle cry was Wolverine, right? What was one of the things that in the movie that they used so they can communicate? It was radio, all right? We are infiltrated by a power, a socialistic power, a communist power, all right? And they are trying to deconstruct us. They're trying to bring us down. They're trying to de-evolve us, all right? Our power needs to shift to radio. It's, yes, we were able to get some notoriety on YouTube and some of these, other social media platforms like Twitter or, BitChute, but we need to think like Red Dawn. We need to start, our battle cry needs to be Wolverine, and we need to leverage some, quote, older technology to get the word out, because it's a lot harder to censor the airways. Now, yes, there's some pluses and minuses to that, but there's something to be learned from Red Dawn and what's going on with us today. So hopefully the audience that's listening to us has a similar ethos, a similar thought process, that we need to save our country and we need to be engaged citizens, peacefully, respectfully, but say no when they infringe on our constitutional freedoms. And when we as a collective body says no, the government has no power. Case in point, when Obamacare came into fruition, when they passed it and it was eventually to go online, and they had some signing up issues because of the internet, and it couldn't take, it didn't have the server capacity. But when they ironed that out, people didn't have to sign. They were told that if you don't sign, you're going to get feed. But if everyone said no to the government, the government would have no recourse. And that is the beauty about the power that the voter has in the United States. If we collectively say no and don't be afraid, then we have the power to push back the corruption that you're talking about, Leo.
For example,
wait, let me finish. It's only when the citizenry, pieces of it, a subset of it, starts to get afraid, and then the government will wedge that constituency, and then now we're not as strong as a voting bloc to say no. We need to all start saying Wolverine to the government. This is our battle cry. This is our moment in history to bring back the country that we were born into.
But we've been talking for months during the Trump administration of the Supreme Court, and we've been talking about the fact that the Supreme Court had to be in the hands of conservative individuals. They made a big thing about nominating the right Supreme Court judges, and then suddenly, what happens? Supreme Court upholds Obamacare with a 7-2 vote. I mean, it's like,
yeah, but there was a 9-0 vote to upholding religious exemptions. So it evens out a little bit. But I see your point. You're right. Here's the problem: is that the judicial branch, the legislative branch, and the executive branch in the United States is bought and paid for. It's corrupt. It's
corrupt like everything else, like the politics, like the business, like everything else. I mean, it's like.
No, but the thing is that if you go back to my analogy with Obamacare, all right, if everyone said no, we're not doing it, we're not signing up. Period. I don't care if the government made a law, we're saying no to it. It would never go to the Supreme Court. Then it turns into a political football. And then all the consultants would be saying, "Oh my God, Obama, you may not get reelected on this. We need to backpedal because we read this completely wrong." See, the power is when we all stand together and say Wolverine. That is an analogy, all right? In terms of Obamacare, if everyone said no, we are not signing, we are not doing this, we're not signing, then the government would have to capitulate. It wouldn't even go to the courts then. It only went into the courts because stupid people actually signed up for the damn thing. We have the power if we use it. If we scream Wolverine, we have the power. The problem is that we can't get enough people to actually take the risk of being an American. They always will pick the safe route because there's a big part of the population that has been programmed to take the safe route, not the route less traveled, like what Robert Frost wrote about in his poems. So, they want to take the route of Mao and not what Robert Frost was saying. And it's like, you know what? Be adventurous. Don't be afraid. We need to galvanize our citizenry to think in these terms, saying no to the government. There's nothing wrong with saying no. It's not illegal to say no. And when there's a collective no, then the government will have to backpedal because they want those votes. It's only when we think we don't have power. And this is, I think some people that are listening to our conversation, especially the first half of it, there was kind of almost a fatalistic perspective. It's like, what can we do about it? The corruption is so great. We can comment about it, but are we really moving the ball forward in preventing it from happening? Well, if we all get on the battlefield, or we all get on the field, the football field, and we all participate, then we can push back and win the game. But if we just want to be spectators, we're going to lose the game because the corruption is so great. But I'm not a fatalist. I've never been a fatalist. I don't think that you're a fatalist either. It's just that people out there that are listening need to get engaged and say, no, we don't want the vaccine passport. We don't want the forced vaccines. We don't want, the surveillance technology and the social scoring and all the elements of the Biopatriot Act that I've been, talking about from day one in covering COVID-19. Not just the biology of it and the crisis and how it could kill people, but it's also about the erosion of our civil liberties. It's just like the Patriot Act right after 9/11.
And regarding that, I must say that unfortunately our former president, he has done a lot of good work, but he has also focused for too long on his election loss and on this fact that eventually he thought was critical that he had actually won and that the elections were somehow tricked. Okay, there might have been, we know, a lot of wrongdoings, but the fact is that by focusing too much probably on this subject, which is the subject of tricked elections, I don't know, of elections that have been falsified, he didn't focus on the important topics, I think. And now this week he came on Fox, he went on Fox News with another, with Hannity, and he finally said, well, I was shocked, we got 64 million votes, but he basically admitted that he didn't get all the votes that were necessary. So he kind of changed. And
well, I think he's pivoting for a potential run in 2024. It's potential. It's not for sure yet.
Okay.
I mean, it looks like he probably has the energy to do it. I think he probably deep down inside really wants to do it, just to just stir up the hornet's nest.
Okay. That's okay. But
the thing is that he was, I was a Trump supporter. I still am a Trump supporter. I would vote probably for him. If it would, but I am, I think that the party needs to kind of move on and not, put their apples, in the basket of Trump, right? I like Rand Paul. I think he's at the point now where he can win the GOP primary. I like what I see with Rand Paul and how he went after Fauci. Trump was in office and he could have revealed a lot of the things that I've been saying on this broadcast today. He could have shined a light on the weapons program in the United States. He could have fired Fauci. Right? Yeah. Trump knows about the funding mechanism early on, going through EcoHealth Alliance of Fauci. He knew that I am positive that Trump knew there was HIV homology in the SARS-CoV-2. All right? And he's a smart guy. All right? He could put 2 and 2 together. Why did he have those three, Birx, Redfield, and Fauci, who are all HIV experts? Birx and Redfield were caught lying about a vaccine for HIV back in the early 90s and doctoring data. Why were they so close to the president, advising the president? Birx and Redfield shouldn't have been 20 kilometers from the president because of their dealings falsifying FDA documents, all right, and published papers. They should have never been close to the president. The reason why is it's the same reason why Summers and Geithner were with Obama right after Lehman. And people are going, what's the connection between Lehman, which is the banking crisis, and SARS-CoV-2? The actors that create the crisis are the actors that literally, quote, are the advisors to the president to get through the crisis. Summers, helped with the Lehman crisis, with Glass-Steagall, redoing the legislation for the banking industry, and Fauci knows a lot about HIV and the gain of function. 100%, the gain of function for SARS-CoV-2 is due to HIV homology. So Trump could have done something. Trump could have done something to reveal these kinds of things.
Well, I hope that we can bring some clarity to this to this world made of deception, lies, and of course of increasing oppression. But now we are seeing some kind of change because the summer is here, and of course the virus seems to be fading out a little bit in front of the sun, especially. But there is, though, I was reading instead the Jerusalem Post in a place like Israel, and I wanted to ask you that because we are 15 minutes to the end of the show, but I want to ask you that before the end of the show. What do you think of a country like Israel, who has vaccinated most of the population and now seems to have a problem again? I mean, it seems like these vaccinations are not the ultimate solution. Actually, in many cases, they are also a big problem because they create health concerns. So what do you think is happening in Israel, a place that we know has really been very strict about their vaccination policy? Hello?
I had to go back and forth because I'm running out of battery here. But in terms of Israel,
yeah.
I am a proponent of choice. I'm not anti-vax. I'm not pro-vax. I believe in choice. And when the Israeli government was forcing it on its citizens, I thought that it was wrong, 100% wrong. Now they do have a lot of individuals vaccinated in their country. Now, if there is an outbreak that's taking place in the country, and I'm not aware of a major outbreak, if there is some clustering outbreaks that are taking place,
it says that viral infection in Israel are surging amongst children and adults around the country that are getting sick, as it usually happens in the winter, expert says, but we are in the summer.
So this is the beginnings of boosters and vaccinating children. I know in the United States we're talking about vaccinating children now. They're doing some studies on it. So this is just the international version of what's going on in the United States. Boosters,
but in the United States, yesterday there was a meeting that nobody has actually talked about today in the media, and a meeting that was announced instead by the media, but didn't really follow up with news on it, by the CDC, discussing the heart inflammation problems on subjects from 16 to 24 or 26, whatever years old. And this kind of a problem is a big problem because in Europe they are actually now stopping in countries like Italy the administration of AstraZeneca, and they are in Johnson & Johnson, and they're directing young people to instead take Moderna and Pfizer, while instead here they're saying that Pfizer and Moderna's vaccines are dangerous. So, I mean, young people shouldn't be vaccinated. We say this every week. We want to say this even this week. Don't vaccinate your children. Don't vaccinate young people. So I think that the what's happening in Israel, it's symptomatic of, like you said, this gradual idea that young people need to be vaccinated. But it's not a good idea. This is Leo Zagami. We are, of course, here on the Leo Zagami Show, broadcasting on Aftermath FM, on Global Enlightenment Radio Network. It's 12 minutes to the hour. We are about to close our show, but of course, the last thoughts about the topic of the day, which is always seems to be always COVID-19, but in one way or another. But there is another thing here. 4 healthy British Airways pilots who took the vaccine died in 1 week. This created actually a lot of worries for people also who are traveling on these airplanes, because if an airline is imposing the vaccination to the pilots and suddenly a pilot in the middle of his flight gets sick, it's not a good thing. No? And so, I mean,
I think his Battery went down.
You know, so yeah, no, I'm here. But the thing, I'm going back and forth to trying to charge it so it doesn't die. But
okay.
you know, but the thing is here, technical difficulties. But you know, you need to have redundancy in a system. And this is this is kind of a philosophical thing, because I used to be an automotive engineer. You know, if you have a complex system, machine or social system, there needs to be redundancy. But because of the desire for more profit, you know, less overhead, the corporate guys, the bean counters, will take the redundancy out. Well, then when you have something that goes wrong, you know, people are going, oh my God, you know. For example, just-in-time delivery. When COVID-19 happened, supply chains broke down because there was no redundancy in the system. So, you know, I put my engineering hat on and say, you have to have redundancy in the system, so when things do go wrong, you have a backup. But that costs more to do. And you have to, you know, have the proper cost structure to support that, you know, and income, you know, to support that. So, you know, I think it's just an overall trend to be minimal, you know, redline it, and then all of a sudden a black swan happens, and then everything breaks down. So we need we need redundancy in systems. If we don't, we can at times have a catastrophe. For example, Fukushima. All right, you know, they didn't have enough redundancy. You know, they should have had more redundancy in their system, and they wouldn't have had a complete meltdown. And you know, for the next 20,000 years, that place is going to be radioactive.
Regarding Japan, as both me and you are connected somehow with Japan, I published many books in Japan, you lived in Japan. Japan has decided, of course, to move forward with their Olympics, so we always discuss this topic. Now, the latest from the Olympics is a kind of hilarious, because in every Olympics for the last, 30 years, they have been giving out, I think from the 80s, they have been giving out condoms to all the people who participate to the Olympics as a practice of safe sex, to encourage the practice of safe sex. Now, this year, though, they are giving the condoms in the Olympic Village to the participants of these Olympics, but they are telling them, take your condoms home, because they don't want people to engage in sexual activity. So the Tokyo Olympic organizer planned to give away about 150,000 condoms to raise awareness, of course, for HIV/AIDS, but they don't want them to use, so they give you the condom, but just don't use them. Maybe you can jerk off using them, I don't know, but I mean, you can't use the condom. It's a crazy world we are living in this year at the Japanese Olympics. There is almost one insane thing after the other that we are reporting. People that are not allowed to eat, not allowed to clap, not allowed to do this and that. They're monitored with GPS and every single move. These are the most Orwellian Olympics that make Adolf Hitler Olympics look like an innocent game. I think that they are going beyond any kind of So I wanted to, of course, bring in this news of the day, even if it's a little bit weird, but we like to discuss this Olympics every time we are on, because Japan should have just given up on the whole thing, but instead it seems they want to move forward. Of course, there is big money interest in it, and they seem to not be interested in wanting to renounce to it. So We are, of course, moving towards the end of this show, but we can't end without your comment, Dr. Paul Cottrell, who, of course, every week discuss with Leo Zagami in this show the latest events of the week. What is your impression of Joe Biden as this international statesman during his trip, first at the G7, then at NATO, and ultimately with his encounter with Vladimir Putin? He snapped at one point with the CNN journalist. He completely snapped. He lost it. So, I mean, he wasn't very cool with that. So what was your impression?
Well, I think Putin is a much stronger leader than Biden. And I think during the solo conference and some of the interviews during the G7, Putin shows that. You know, he's KGB, right? You know, he's a smart guy. You know, he's a rich guy too now. But Biden just doesn't have any energy. I mean, Trump was being interviewed on Hannity, and he said, you know, there's no energy there. You don't see it. You know, there's just not there. So, you know, Putin's a martial arts guy, Taekwondo, I think it is.
Judo.
You know, so I mean, you know, this guy is, you know, he's got some energy. Unfortunately, Biden is just his days are gone, and he was even went during his prime years in Congress. He wasn't that bright. He wasn't the brightest, you know, congressman there.
The thing that he snapped at one point with the journalist from CNN really showed the weakness of character of this individual, but also his confusion. I mean, the fact that he snapped with the journalist CNN, and then half an hour later, while he's boarding the plane, he had to make this whole apology, which was rather embarrassing. And it kind of like left us a little bit wondering if it was just the result of his maybe consulting with Saki and the other people from his team, who are always the controllers. I mean, who are always the ones who monitor him in everything he does. He's a very monitored individual. He doesn't have just the freedom to talk. He had one thing that I noticed during his talk with Vladimir Putin, he had these notes that he was reading from in his hand. I mean, presenting yourself, a leader of the United States of America, with a bunch of notes in your hands in front of Vladimir Putin, and then going to Vladimir Putin and saying, listen, these 16 infrastructures don't need to be touched. Which basically implies that you can touch everything else, and plus gives an advantage to Vladimir Putin, who says, okay, now we know the 16 infrastructures that make America weak. Let me write it down. You know, it was completely ridiculous. I mean, insane if you think about it. This guy doesn't have a clue, and he's actually jeopardizing even the security of the United States of America by doing that.
Yeah, I mean, there might be a little bit of feedback, but I have to charge this way because I'll lose the connection. But I am concerned about our country on the world stage when Biden is the president. What I liked about Trump was he was the type of person that would get up on stage, and you didn't see him carrying notes. He just talked. He felt very comfortable taking questions, making fun of the reporters, saying what he thought. And I personally like that type of president, you know, off the cuff, being honest. It's kind of almost reminiscent, and people will say, you're crazy, Paul, you just made this comparison. But if you watch JFK speak in some of his speeches as president, he didn't have notes. He was just talking.
It was a godly.
The just talk.
Sorry, we have a little bit of delay. I see also on my side. We are approaching the end of the show, so let's wrap it up because we have only 1 minute. You have been following us for the first time on Aftermath FM. This was the Leo Zagami Show with Dr. Paul Cottrell, a weekly rundown of all the weekly news. We also been broadcasting on the Global Enlightenment Radio Network. Darrell, we are ready to switch off. Dr. Paul Cottrell, we are ready to switch off. Enjoy a great week and get my books, of course. Go on my website if you want to get them. Go on Studio Reykjavik for all the products of Dr. Paul Cottrell.
Walk out the front door.
All right, man. There you go. Yeah, you know, I probably will do a show later because we don't have no shows tonight. And I have a show in the morning, but I'll come back later and I have this, I'll come back later because I have this way that I can call myself from my iPad and I can do a walkthrough and show you guys what the place looks like when I'm done. So, what's up, Michael? What's up, Greg? Thanks a lot, dude, by the way. Thanks, Robin. Hey, let's see who else here. Zoe. Yeah, let's see. Who else here? Droner. What's up, man? So, you guys have been active. What's up with, where's Shawnee? I don't know where Shawnee went. Is Shawnee a truck driver, too? I don't know. That's trippy. Well, let's see. All right. Well, here we go.